units, throw it out, no liability towards service tax at all. That definition also requires that the layout of the complex should be approved by a competent authority for the time being in force. So if you are in an area wherein there is no municipal authority and there is no requirement of a layout approval, you are out. Also, unauthorized constructions will be out because there is no layout approval available in those cases. Of course, keep in mind, if you are constructing commercial premises, malls, shops, commercial complexes, offices, they would be taxable under industrial construction service. There also there is a similar explanation being brought in. Complexes constructed for personal use are excluded. The definition of personal use includes letting out and also includes use for a purpose for residence. So very loosely we can say that we can dilute this personal use exemption to mean an exemption for not for sale. Cases wherein you are not intending to further sell, those cases will not be covered. And there's a notification granting an exemption for amounts received prior to 1st of July 2010. So all amounts received prior to that date, no liability towards payment of service tax at all. There's no liability for any amounts which are received prior to 1st of July 2010. Word of caution here, please do not misunderstand this exemption to mean services rendered up to 1st July 2010 are exempted. What it merely says is amounts received up to 1st of July 2010 is exempted. So, if there is some construction completed prior to 1st July, but the amount is received thereafter, in my view, because the amendment is brought about through an explanation, that amount would become taxable. So these are some simple exclusions. Now let's go to the moot point. All of these, the ones which we listed earlier, you can immediately throw them out. Let's now go to the moot point. Whether sale of under construction flats can be taxable. Is it really important that you entered into an agreement prior to completion of flat, or you received some money prior to completion of the flat? Does that really change the essence of the transaction? According to me, no. And on this account, there is a huge element of litigation pending across various high courts. The Mumbai High Court, in the case of MCHI, Maharashtra Chamber of Housing Industry, has stated that no coercive measures will be taken for recovery of service tax. So loosely we can say that a stay has been granted against the recovery of service tax on this account. Even the Chennai High Court in AP Ravi's case has taken a similar view. So it's something which will last for next 3-4 years, and there will be some litigation throughout around that period. We'll have to live with that litigation. Let's now for a moment assume that you don't want to take an aggressive position. Because what happens is, once you take an aggressive position, you are not permitted to collect this tax. And later on, if the Supreme Court holds against you, or if there's a retrospective amendment the way the renting thing went, we'll talk about it in the next couple of minutes, then you are stuck up, you have to pay the taxes from your own pockets. So many a times builders want to take a conservative position. They want to say that, okay, whatever be the tax, I have to collect it from the buyer and pay to the government. And as of today, as it is, it's a seller's market. Of course, things are likely to change over the next couple of months due to the incidents of the last week and so. But yes, more or less, we are saying that there's a scarcity of real estate. And therefore, a builder might find a way to actually go ahead and collect the tax from the buyer and pay it to the government. So you have a situation wherein many builders would want to take a conservative position and discharge service tax. If so, the question which comes up is, we are saying that this is a deemed service. If it's a deemed service, is the entire contract a deemed service, or is a part of the contract a deemed service? Let's try to draw parallels. All of us aware of Gannon-Dunkerley and the constitutional amendment permitting the states to levy a VAT or then the sales tax on the material component of a composite works contract. That was also a deeming fiction. Deeming fiction said transfer of property in execution of a works contract shall be deemed to be a sale. What was the impact of that deeming fiction? What it did was, prior to that amendment, a composite contract having material and labor was not taxed. Post the amendment, the entire contract never became taxable. It was only the material component which was permitted to be vivisected, and the value attributable to the material component was allowed to be taxed. Same way, when we have a deeming fiction coming up for builder's service tax this year, we are talking of construction intended for sale shall be deemed to be a service as far as under construction flats is concerned. So again, we are saying prior to this amendment, a composite contract wherein a builder provides you an immobile property consisting of land value, material value, and his labor component was not taxed. Post this deeming fiction, if at all it has to be taxed, the tax can be only on the labor component. And I think this is a settled position. The legislature also recognizes this, and therefore there is an amendment to Notification 1 of 2006, which says that a builder can choose to pay a service tax on 25% of the amount charged to the buyer. So what we are presuming is, arbitrarily, we are presuming 75% to be the amount towards the land and the material, and 25% to be the value towards the labor on which service tax is payable. Only thing is, Notification 1 comes with a very important caveat: you are not eligible to claim SENVET credit. There's also option 2, which says that if the land value is not included, you can pay a service tax on 33% of the material plus the labor component. This typically will apply in case of split development contracts, wherein there is one contract for sale of undivided interest in the land and another contract for development of the property. If you don't want to go in on either of this because it's an optional scheme, you can go to Notification 12. You can start with your base value, reduce the land value, reduce the material value, identify the labor value, and pay service tax at 10.3% on this labor value. If you choose that scheme, then you will be eligible for SENVET credit. An important caveat: the works contract composition scheme entitling you to pay 4.12% of the gross contract value does not apply for builders at all. This is because the explanation is inserted under industrial construction service and construction of complex service, not inserted under the works contract services. And that takes me to the base point, that if we are going to say that all composite contracts can be taxed only under works contract service, a builder can go ahead and argue that this entire explanation is not effective at all. Ideally, the definition or the explanation should have been inserted in the works contract service to really make sense. So that summarizes the position as far as normal consideration is concerned. We already talked about it. There is an element of litigation, but you find builders taking conservative positions, collecting taxes and paying them. Otherwise, it's a fit case to fight it out all the way to Supreme Court. We also talked about annual maintenance. Most of the builders collect ad hoc maintenance. This, yes, there's a risk of getting covered under a category known as management maintenance or repair services. Most of the other collections are at actuals, so need not be covered under the service tax. Sale of parking is specifically excluded under another category, so I don't need to take the time. We are anyways a bit behind schedule. We go to the next point which was being raised, renting of immobile property. A very hazy position. Delhi High Court goes ahead and interprets in relation to in a very interesting manner. Says, when you are using the word service in relation to renting, it will include services associated with renting, but will not include the activity of renting per se. This prompted the government to make a retrospective amendment to levy the service tax on renting per se. A long retrospective amendment and an explanation was provided by way of memorandums. This explanation was also challenged. This retrospective amendment was challenged in various cases, and a stay has been granted against retrospective applicability in all those cases. Recently, the Supreme Court also declined to intervene against the said stay, but requested the Delhi High Court to actually have an early adjudication on this matter. One caveat: Andhra Pradesh High Court in Trent Limited has said that prospectively the tax will be applicable. Unluckily, it goes ahead and identifies 1st April 2010 as the cutoff date. I'm not sure why does it say so. Ideally, it should be either 1st July or it has to go back to an original date. 1st April 2010 actually is a non-starter, but Trent Limited, Andhra Pradesh High Court talks about 1st April 2010 to be the effective date. As of today, therefore, the situation is a bit fluid. Let's see, the matter is listed for hearing in the January 2011, so we should soon have some news on this. As we say from a very interesting movie, पिक्चर अभी बाकी है, so there's a long story which comes up on this. Maybe next year we can have a more detailed analysis in one of the conferences on this part. Of course, to highlight, most of us are aware that only renting of properties for furtherance of business or commerce are taxed. If the renting is not for furtherance of business or commerce, it